They laughed when I asked where my graduation fund went. Not nervous laughter. Not the kind that tries to soften bad news. This was the full-bodied, head-thrown-back kind. The kind that echoes off vaulted ceilings in a McMansion outside Austin, Texas, where everything's bigger, louder, and designed to make you feel smaller. My mother wiped tears from the corners of her eyes, mascara smudging just slightly. My father grinned behind his whiskey glass, the ice clinking like punctuation. And my sister, golden perfect Bryn, fresh off her Maldives honeymoon, tilted her head and said, with that same saccharine smile she perfected at UT Sorority Rush, "Oh my God, Maren. You're not actually mad, are you?" Before I continue, I need to pause for just a moment. Because right now you have a choice. You can keep scrolling. You can move on to the next video. You can pretend stories like Castellano don't happen every single day in this country. Or you can hit that subscribe button. You can be part of a community that refuses to look away. Because if you're not willing to spend 2 seconds subscribing to hear her story, how can we expect anyone to spend 2 seconds treating her with dignity? The choice is yours. I stood in the doorway of their dining room, my phone still warm in my hand, the banking app still open. The screen glowed with a number I'd been staring at for 20 minutes, trying to make sense of it the way you stare at a word you've spelled wrong, convinced your eyes are lying. $85,000. Gone. Not spent. Not transferred. Erased. Every dollar my grandmother, Nana Ruth, the woman who raised me more than my own parents ever did, had set aside before she died. The fund she opened the day I got into NYU. The one she made them promise to protect. The one that was supposed to keep me from drowning in the same debt that swallowed half my generation. Where did it go? I asked again. My voice came out quieter than I wanted. Steadier though. Like my body knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. Mom set down her wine glass. Napa Cab, the kind she only drinks when she's trying to impress someone. "Sweetie," she said, using the tone she reserves for telemarketers and difficult waitstaff. "Your sister needed a proper honeymoon. You understand, right? You're the strong one." The strong one. That phrase had followed me since middle school. It's what they said when I worked weekends at HEB while Bryn got a convertible for her 16th birthday. It's what they said when I lived in a 4th-floor walk-up in Bushwick, eating dollar-slice pizza for dinner, while Bryn got her rent covered in a high-rise near Zilker Park. It's what they said when I took out $62,000 in federal loans, because the fund, my fund, wasn't liquid yet. That's what they told me. For 4 years. Proper honeymoon. I repeated slowly, tasting each word like something rotten. Dad leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking under him. He's the kind of man who wears a Rolex to backyard barbecues and calls everyone chief. "Maren, you'll pay off those loans eventually. Your sister only gets married once." Bryn's laugh was bright, musical, the kind that gets her free drinks at 6th Street bars. I mean, the Maldives aren't cheap, but it was literally a once-in-a-lifetime experience. She pulled out her phone, swiping to her Instagram. Look, 18,000 likes. People loved it. I looked. I wish I hadn't. Overwater bungalows. Infinity pools that bled into the Indian Ocean. Her and Chad, investment banker Chad, whose family owns half of Highland Park, clinking champagne flutes under a sunset that looked photoshopped but wasn't. Caption: blessed beyond measure. Dreams do come true when you have family who believes in you. My hands went cold. Not from anger. Not yet. From recognition. The kind that arrives slow and certain, like fog rolling into the Bay Area, covering everything until you can't see where solid ground ends and the void begins. I scrolled. $18,000 for the bungalow. $9,000 for spa packages. $4,500 for a private yacht day. $6,200 for designer shopping in Male. First-class flights upgraded. The math assembled itself in my head the way it always does. Sharp, unforgiving, exact. $85,000. Almost to the penny. She spent my future on a vacation. Maren. My mother's voice had an edge now, the kind she uses when she's about to call you ungrateful. Don't make this a thing. But it already was a thing. It had been a thing since Nana Ruth's funeral, when my parents promised, hand over the will, voices solemn, that they'd protect what she left for me. It had been a thing every time I asked about accessing the fund and got vague answers about market conditions and probate delays. It had been a thing every time I picked up an extra shift at the Starbucks on Astor Place just to cover textbooks while Bryn posted photos from Tulum. I looked up from the phone. My father's smirk had faded just slightly. My mother's fingers tapped the stem of her wine glass. Bryn's smile stayed fixed, but her eyes blue sharp calculating. Tracked me like a hawk watching a field mouse decide whether to run. "You're right," I said finally. Relief flooded the room. My mother exhaled. My father lifted his glass. Bryn's grin widened. "I am the strong one." I turned and walked out. No slam doors. No tears. No scene. Behind me, I heard Bryn whisper to Mom, "See? I told you she'd get over it." She had no idea. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, because they'd spent 2 decades underestimating me, was that I'd already screenshotted everything. The withdrawals. The dates. The Instagram posts with geotags and timestamps. And I'd already pulled up the PDF of Nana Ruth's will. The one that said in bold legally binding language, "This fund is for Maren Eloise Castellano's higher education expenses only." I didn't cry in the Uber back to my apartment in Williamsburg. I didn't rage text my best friend. I just sat in the back seat, watching the Austin skyline shrink behind me through the window, and felt something inside me stop bending. It started sharpening instead. They thought the laughter was the end of the conversation. It was the beginning of the reckoning. If you've ever been the responsible one, in a family that only remembered you when they needed something fixed, funded, or forgotten, you already know how this story ends. Or at least you think you do. My name is Maren Castellano. I'm 24, a data analyst living in Brooklyn, and for most of my life, I believed that working harder than everyone else was how you earned love. That if I just proved myself, got the grades, won the scholarships, handled my own problems, eventually my parents would look at me the way they looked at Bryn. Spoiler. They never did. Growing up in the suburbs of Austin, our house was the kind you see in those southern living spreads. Stone facade, 3-car garage, a pool my mother called entertaining space, even though we only used it twice a year. From the outside, we looked like the American dream in khakis and understated wealth. Inside, the script was simple. Bryn was the star. I was the stage crew. When Bryn struggled with Algebra 2 sophomore year, my parents hired a $90 an hour tutor and cleared her afternoon schedule so she could focus. When I struggled with AP Chem, Dad handed me a Khan Academy link and said, "You're smart. You'll figure it out." When Bryn turned 16, they surprised her with a used convertible, cream-colored, barely 30K miles, tied with an actual bow. When I turned 16, they gave me a planner and a speech about time management. I'm not saying this to sound bitter. I'm saying it because patterns matter. And by the time I graduated high school as valedictorian, Bryn was salutatorian, which my mother reminded me about constantly, as if the gap wasn't 37/100ths of a GPA point. I'd learned that my job in this family was to be fine, efficient, low maintenance. Bryn got to be beloved. I got to be useful. College should have been my escape. I got into NYU, full ride nowhere close, but a partial scholarship that covered tuition if I could handle living expenses. My grandmother, Nana Ruth, my dad's mom, the only person who ever looked at me like I mattered without conditions, set up the fund the day my acceptance letter arrived. I remember her sitting me down in her house in San Marcos, the one that smelled like lemon pledge and old paperbacks, holding my hands across her kitchen table. She was dying. We both knew it, even if no one said it out loud. "This money is for you, Mija," she said, her accent thick, her grip stronger than her body looked. "For school. For your future. Your parents will manage it until you need it, but it's yours. Promise me you won't let anyone take it." I promised. She died 3 weeks later. Pancreatic cancer, the kind that moves fast and doesn't negotiate. At her funeral, my parents stood beside me, somber and appropriate. My mother cried into a tissue. My father shook hands and accepted condolences with the gravity of a man who understood loss. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't devastated, but because I'd already learned that crying in front of my family was the same as handing them a weapon. After the service, my father pulled me aside. "Your grandmother left you something," he said. "A fund. For school. We'll manage it. Make sure it's there when you need it." I believed him. For years later, I'd find out that belief cost me everything. Because while I was in New York, living in a fifth-floor walk-up in Bushwick with 2 roommates and a radiator that only worked when it wanted to, my parents were telling me the fund wasn't accessible yet. Tied up in probate, market fluctuations, legal complications. So I worked. 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I made lattes at a Starbucks near Washington Square before my 8 a.m. classes. I did freelance data entry until 2 a.m. on weekends. I ate $1 pizza and learned which bodegas had the best discount rack. I took out $62,000 in federal loans. Meanwhile, Bryn, who went to UT Austin, 20 minutes from home, got her apartment rent covered. Got a new wardrobe every season. Got a girls' trip to Cabo for spring break, a bachelorette party in Nashville, and a $40,000 wedding at a vineyard in Fredericksburg. When I asked my parents for help buying textbooks once, $200, that's all I needed. My mother sighed like I'd asked her to donate a kidney. "We're stretched thin, sweetie. Can you pick up an extra shift?" 2 weeks later, Bryn posted photos from a weekend in New Orleans. Front row seats at a Saints game. Champagne brunch at Commander's Palace. I didn't say anything. I just added another shift. That's what the responsible one does, right? We suffer quietly. We make it work. We convince ourselves that independence is the same thing as strength, that not needing help is the same as being valued. I thought graduation would be different. I thought walking across that stage, diploma in hand, summa cum laude, job offer already signed, would finally make them see me. I was wrong. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that while I was building my future one brutal shift at a time, they were spending it. All of it. And when I finally found out, they didn't apologize. They laughed. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning in late October, 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. I was sitting in a WeWork in Dumbo, staring at a spreadsheet that wouldn't balance, nursing my 3rd cold brew of the day. Outside, the East River glittered under weak sunlight. The Manhattan skyline looked almost fake, the way it does in movies when the CGI budget runs out. My phone buzzed. A notification from Chase Bank. Account alert. Unusual activity detected on Education Fund ACCT number 7392. My stomach dropped before my brain caught up. I hadn't touched that account in months. Hadn't needed to. I'd been making loan payments out of my checking, the same way I'd done for 2 years. The fund was supposed to be there, waiting. A safety net I never wanted to use but needed to know existed. I opened the app. The screen loaded slowly, the way it does when your Wi-Fi knows you're about to see something you can't unsee. And then the number appeared. Available balance, $0. I blinked. Refreshed. The number didn't change. 0. Not $85,000. Not even $8,500. Not a single dollar. My hands went cold. The kind of cold that starts in your fingertips and crawls up your arms until your chest feels like it's been packed with ice. The coffee shop noise, clacking keyboards, hissing espresso machine, someone's Spotify bleeding through cheap earbuds, faded into static. I scrolled down. Transaction history. 8 withdrawals. All within the last 9 months. All labeled the same way. Transfer to external account El Castellano. El Castellano. Linda. My mother. The amount staggered across the screen like evidence at a crime scene. $18,000. March 14th. $9,200. March 28th. $12,400. April 2nd. $6,800. April 15th. $11,500. May 3rd. $14,600. May 10th. $7,300. May 22nd. $5,200. June 1st. I pulled up my calendar. Cross-referenced the dates. March 14th. The day Bryn posted her Countdown to Paradise Instagram story. April 2nd. The day she tagged the Maldives resort. May 22nd. The day she came home, tanned and glowing, showing off her henna tattoo at Sunday brunch. My vision tunneled. The spreadsheet on my laptop blurred. Someone at the next table laughed, and it sounded like it was coming from underwater. I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring, her voice bright, like she'd been expecting good news. Maren. Suotia. How's New York? Where's my money? I didn't mean to say it like that. Flat, cold, stripped of anything soft. But that's how it came out. Silence. Just long enough for me to hear her recalibrate. What money, honey? The fund. Nana Ruth's fund. The one you were managing. It's empty. Another pause. Longer this time. I could almost hear her brain sorting through excuses, testing which one would land. Oh, she said finally, her tone shifting into something practiced, rehearsed. Oh, that. Sweetie, we had to reallocate some things. Your sister needed help with the honeymoon. You know how expensive destination weddings are. Reallocate. The word sat in my throat like broken glass. That money was for my education. And you got your education, didn't you? Her voice had an edge now. The kind she uses when she's done pretending to be patient. You graduated. You have a job. Bryn needed support for a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You're the strong one, Maren. You'll figure it out. The strong one. There it was again. The phrase that had been used to justify every imbalance, every inequality, every moment I was expected to carry more because they decided Bryn deserved to carry less. I took out $62,000 in loans, I said slowly, each word deliberate, because you told me the fund wasn't available yet. Well, it wasn't, she said, like that explained everything. We needed it for Bryn. Family helps family. In the background, I heard my father's voice. Is that Maren? Tell her we'll talk about this later. We're busy. My mother lowered her voice, conspiratorial now, like we were in this together. Honestly, sweetie, you're making a bigger deal out of this than it needs to be. You know how your father gets when you're dramatic. Dramatic. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. Not from sadness. From clarity. For the first time in my life, I saw it, really saw it. The script they'd been reading from since I was a kid. The one where Bryn got the starring role, and I got to hold the cue cards. The one where my dreams were negotiable, and hers were non-negotiable. The one where my future was something they could spend. I opened my laptop. Pulled up the PDF of Nana Ruth's will. Found the section I needed. This fund is established solely for Maren Eloise Castellano's higher education expenses. Trustees may not withdraw funds for any other purpose. I screenshotted it. Then I Googled, estate attorney Brooklyn near me. They thought the conversation was over. It had just started. Let me take you back to freshman year. September 2019. I'm standing in the financial aid office at NYU. A converted brownstone in Greenwich Village that smells like old carpet and stress. The woman behind the desk, Maria, her nameplate says, has kind eyes but a tired smile. She's seen this conversation 1,000 times. Your expected family contribution is $28,000 annually, she says, sliding a printout across the desk. After your scholarship, that leaves $19,000 per year in gap funding. I do the math in my head. For years. $76,000. My grandmother set up a fund. I say, my voice small, hopeful. It should cover that, right? Maria checks her screen. I don't see any documentation of an education fund linked to your FAFSA. My parents are managing it. They said they'd handle the transfers. She gives me a look I'll recognize later as pity. You'll need to contact them directly. In the meantime, I can help you apply for federal loans. I call my mother from the steps outside. It's hot, that humid New York heat that makes your clothes stick. Students stream past me, laughing, carrying boxes, looking like they belong. Mom, the financial aid office needs documentation for the fund. Oh, sweetie. Her voice is distracted, like I'm interrupting something important. That fund isn't liquid yet. Probate takes time. Just take out loans for now. We'll reimburse you later. Later. That word became a talisman I carried for 4 years. A promise that never materialized. So I signed. Federal direct loans. $5,500 my first year. Then $6,500. Then $7,500. By senior year, I'd maxed out at $12,500 annually, plus private loans to cover the gaps. Total, $62,000. Every semester, the same ritual. I'd sit in that financial aid office, sign the promissory notes, and tell myself it was temporary. That my parents would make it right. That the fund was coming. Meanwhile, I worked. Starbucks on Astor Place, 5 a.m. shifts before my 8 a.m. econometrics class. I learned to steam milk in my sleep, to smile at finance bros who didn't tip, to mop floors while my classmates were still asleep in their dorm rooms. Weekends, I did data entry for a market research firm. $15 an hour, remote, mind-numbing. I'd sit in the corner of the Bob's library, headphones in, entering survey responses until my eyes blurred. Evenings, I tutored high school students in Tribeca whose parents paid $50 an hour for SAT prep. I'd take the one train downtown, teach kids who had every advantage I didn't, then ride back uptown to my 5th-floor walk-up in Bushwick. My apartment, if you could call it that, was 200 square feet. 2 roommates, 1 bathroom, a kitchen the size of a closet. The radiator clanged all night in winter, and didn't work at all in spring. I kept my clothes in a duffel bag because there was no closet space. I ate $8 pizza from the place on Broadway. Ramen. Bodega sandwiches. I learned which grocery stores marked down produce on Sunday nights. I didn't go out. Didn't date. Didn't do spring break trips or weekend getaways. I worked. I studied. I survived. And every few months, I'd call home and ask about the fund. Still in probate. Market's bad right now. We'll let you know when it's ready. Junior year, my laptop died. A 2015 MacBook Air that finally gave up. I called my father. Dad, I need a laptop for class. Can we use some of the fund? He sighed. Maren, we've talked about this. That money isn't accessible right now. Can't you just use the library computers? I bought a refurbished Chromebook on Amazon for $180. It froze every time I opened more than 3 tabs. 2 weeks later, Bryn posted photos from Cabo. Spring break with her sorority sisters. Matching swimsuits. Bottles of champagne on the beach. Caption. Thankful for parents who support my self-care journey. I stared at that post for 20 minutes. Then I picked up another shift. Senior year, my tooth cracked. Stress fracture from grinding my jaw at night. The NYU dental clinic quoted me $1,200 for a crown. I called my mother. Mom, I need help. Just this once. Sweetie, you know we're stretched thin. Can't you wait until you have a job? I paid for it with a credit card. 22% APR. 3 days later, my mother texted me a photo of Bryn's engagement ring. 3 carats, platinum band. So proud of our girl. I didn't respond. Graduation day, May 2023, I walked across that stage with $62,000 in debt, a cracked tooth, and a job offer that would take me a decade to dig out of the hole they made me fall into, while my parents paid for Bryn's $40,000 wedding. With my money, I didn't plan to become a forensic accountant of my own betrayal. But grief and rage make you methodical in ways you never expected. The night after my mother hung up on me, after she said, "You're being dramatic," and my father muttered, "We're busy," I sat on my apartment floor in Bushwick, surrounded by bank statements I'd printed at a FedEx on Atlantic Avenue. My laptop glowed in the dark. Outside, the J train rattled past, shaking the windows. I opened Instagram. Bryn's profile was public. Of course it was. She'd spent years building her influencer aesthetic. 21,000 followers, mostly Austin mommy bloggers and sorority sisters who thought her life was aspirational. I scrolled back to March 12, 2024. A photo of her and Chad at Austin Bergstrom, matching leather carry-ons, her left hand strategically positioned to show off her ring. Caption. Countdown to paradise begins now. Hashtag Bryn and Chad forever. I cross-referenced my bank statements. March 14, 2024, $18,000 withdrawal. I kept scrolling. March 29, a sunset photo. Overwater bungalow in the background. The kind with glass floors where you can see tropical fish swimming beneath you. Her feet are propped on a railing. Toes painted coral pink. Caption: Waking up in heaven. This bungalow is everything. Thank you to my amazing family for always believing in my dreams. I zoomed in on the background. Found the resort logo on a beach towel. Googled it. Conrad Maldives Rangali Island. Overwater bungalows starting at $2,200 per night. They stayed 8 nights. $17,600. I pulled up the bank statement. March 14th withdrawal. $18,000. My chest tightened. April 3rd. Bryn in a white linen dress, hair blowing in the wind, standing on the deck of a yacht. The ocean behind her looked photoshopped but wasn't. Caption: Private yacht day equals best day ever. Feeling so grateful. Motorboat clinking glasses. I googled private yacht Maldives. $4,000 to $6,000 per day, depending on the package. Bank statement. April 2nd, $6,800 withdrawal. April 10th. A selfie in a spa robe, cucumber slices on her eyes, face mask glowing. Caption: Couples massage plus facial plus body scrub equals pure bliss. Chad is such a good husband already. Hashtag spa life. I found the resort spa menu online. Couples packages, $1,200 to $2,500. But the April 15th withdrawal was $11,500. That's when I noticed the shopping bags in the background of her April 12th post. A mirror selfie, Bryn holding up a Gucci tote, another bag from Fendi at her feet. Caption: When in Male. Treating myself because I deserve it. I searched flight records next. I still had access to my parents' shared iCloud. They'd never removed me after I moved out. I opened the airline confirmation emails. American Airlines, Austin to Dubai to Male. 2 passengers, Bryn Castellano, Chad Morrison. First class upgrade, $12,400. Bank statement, March 28th, $12,400 withdrawal. Every post, every geotag, every caption about gratitude and family and blessings. All of it was my future, repackaged as her fairy tale. I made a spreadsheet. Called it evidence. Column A, date of Instagram post. Column B, Épince description. Column C, estimated cost. Column D, corresponding bank withdrawal. Column E, difference. By 2 a.m., I had 23 rows filled. Overwater bungalow, $18,000. Flights, first class $12,400. Private yacht, $6,800. Spa packages, $11,500 multiple visits. Shopping Gucci Fendi, local jewelry $9,200. Fine dining, she posted every meal $7,300. Excursions dolphin swim, helicopter tour, sunset cruise $14,600. Miscellaneous, resort fees, tips, champagne, $5,200. Total, $85,000. To the penny. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. She hadn't just used my fund. She drained it. Strategically. Methodically. Like she was shopping off a wedding registry, except the registry was my education, my future, my grandmother's last gift to me. And she posted every single expense like it was a love letter to herself. I screenshotted everything. Every post. Every receipt I could find. Every geotag. Then I went back to her graduation post from 2021. The one where my parents threw her a party at Juliet Italian Kitchen in Austin. 100 guests. Open bar. A cake that looked like a 3-tier sculpture. I was in New York that weekend. Working a double shift. They didn't invite me. I didn't make a sound. Didn't cry. Didn't scream into my pillow. I just saved every screenshot into a folder labeled restitution. And opened a new tab. Google search. Estate attorney Brooklyn fiduciary duty breach. Bryn thought the Maldives were the highlight of her year. She had no idea they were about to become the most expensive vacation of her life. It happened at 3:47 a.m. on a Wednesday in November. I know the exact time because I was staring at my phone, watching the minutes change, unable to sleep for the 4th night in a row. My apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional rattle of pipes in the walls. My roommates were asleep. The city outside my window had finally gone quiet. That rare hour when even New York holds its breath. I was sitting on the floor of my bedroom, if you could call it that, more like a converted closet with a window, surrounded by papers, bank statements, loan documents, screenshots printed on cheap paper from the Staples on Flatbush. My laptop was open, calculator app glowing. I'd been doing math I didn't want to finish. At my current salary, $68,000 a year as a junior data analyst. After taxes, rent, utilities, groceries, MetroCard and minimum loan payments, I had $340 left each month. $340 to save. To live. To build any kind of future. I ran the numbers again. If I kept making minimum payments on $62,000 at 6.8% interest, I'd be paying for the next 15 years. 15 years. I'd be 39 years old before I was free. By then, Bryn's kids would be in middle school. My parents would be retired. And I'd still be paying for a dream they stole and repackaged as someone else's honeymoon. That's when it hit me. Not gently. Not like a realization that builds slowly. Like a freight train. I pulled my knees to my chest and felt something crack open inside me. Not anger this time. Something deeper. Older. Grief. For the version of myself who believed working harder would make them love me. For the girl who thought if she just stayed quiet, stayed useful, stayed small, eventually they'd see her. For the 20-year-old who called her mother crying because she couldn't afford a winter coat, and her mother said, "Can't you just layer?" While Bryn posted photos from a ski trip in Aspen the same weekend. For every double shift I worked while Bryn slept in. For every textbook I couldn't afford to buy new. For every time I said I'm fine when I wasn't. I thought about my grandmother. Nana Ruth. The way she held my face in her hands the day I got into NYU. The way her eyes, dark, serious, full of something I didn't have a name for then but recognize now as belief, locked onto mine. "Mija," she said. "You're going to do things I never got to do. This money is for you. Not for them. For you." I promised her I'd use it. That I'd make her proud. And I couldn't even protect it. The sob came without warning, ripping out of my chest like something feral. I pressed my hand over my mouth so my roommates wouldn't hear, but it kept coming, wave after wave, until I was doubled over on the floor, shoulders shaking, tears soaking into the cheap IKEA rug beneath me. I cried for the girl who believed her parents when they said the fund wasn't ready yet. I cried for the hours I lost, the sleep I missed, the life I didn't get to live because I was too busy surviving. I cried because my sister got to be careless, and I had to be careful, and no one ever asked if that was fair. And then, somewhere in the wreckage of that breakdown, something else surfaced. Not sadness. Clarity. I sat up, wiped my face with the sleeve of my oversized Nets hoodie. My reflection stared back at me from the black screen of my laptop. I looked tired. Hollow. But not broken. Not anymore. I thought about Nana Ruth again. Not the sick version in the hospital bed, but the strong one. The one who came to America at 19 with nothing. The one who cleaned houses and raised 3 kids and saved every penny so her grandchildren could have what she didn't. She didn't save that money so my parents could fund Bryn's Instagram content. She saved it so I could be free. And I'd let them take that from me without a fight. But not anymore. I opened my laptop. The screen lit up my face, casting shadows across the stacks of papers. I pulled up the email I'd drafted 2 days earlier. The one I'd been too scared to send. Subject: Request for consultation. Estate law/fiduciary breach. My finger hovered over the send button. I thought about my mother's voice. "You're being dramatic." My father's dismissal. "We're busy." Bryn's laugh. "You're not actually mad, are you?" I hit send. The whoosh sound felt louder than it should have. I closed the laptop, set it aside, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't felt since the day I opened that bank statement. Control. Not over them. Over myself. They'd taken my money, my security, my grandmother's promise, but they hadn't taken my voice. And I was done being silent. Thanksgiving arrived like a sentencing. My mother called 3 times before I finally answered. Each voicemail progressively sharper, like she was tuning a violin string until it snapped. Maren, we're expecting you Thursday at 2. Don't be late. No, please. No, we'd love to see you. Just an order, delivered with the certainty of someone who'd never been told no. I should have stayed in New York. Should have volunteered at a soup kitchen or binged Netflix in my pajamas, or done literally anything except get on that Southwest flight to Austin. But some sick part of me needed to see it. Needed to watch them pretend everything was normal, while I carried a legal consultation summary in my bag like a hand grenade. The house looked exactly the same. Stone facade. Perfectly manicured lawn. A wreath on the door that my mother probably paid someone on TaskRabbit to hang. I walked in without knocking. The dining room smelled like roasted turkey and sweet potato casserole. The table was set for 12, extended family, the kind who only showed up for free food and gossip. Bryn was already there, of course. Hair curled, sitting next to Chad, wearing a cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than my rent. She looked up when I entered, her smile bright and empty. Maren, you made it. Like I'd just returned from war instead of funding her vacation. My mother swept in from the kitchen, oven mitts on, playing her favorite role. The gracious hostess. Sweetheart. She kissed my cheek, the kind of air kiss that doesn't actually make contact. We're so glad you're here. Go sit. We'll eat in a few minutes. I sat at the far end of the table, the spot they always gave me. Next to Uncle Rick, who only talked about his Tesla, and Aunt Diane, who asked the same 3 questions every year and never listened to the answers. My father carved the turkey with the precision of a man who thought manual labor was beneath him, but made exceptions for performance. Bryn raised her glass of wine, Napa Cab, the expensive kind my parents only broke out for holidays. I just want to say, she began, her voice saccharine, how grateful I am for this family. For parents who support us no matter what. For a husband who loves me unconditionally. And for a sister who, she looked directly at me, always understands. The table murmured approval. Glasses clinked. I didn't move. My mother beamed. My father nodded. Chad squeezed Bryn's hand like she'd just delivered a TED Talk. I waited until the turkey was served. Until plates were full and mouths were busy. Then I spoke. Where's my $85,000? The room went silent so fast it felt like someone had hit a mute button. Forks froze midair. My cousin Emily's mouth hung open, a piece of stuffing visible on her tongue. My mother's smile tightened. Maren. Not now. When then? I kept my voice calm. Clinical. Because I asked 2 weeks ago. And you hung up on me. My father set down his carving knife, the metal clanging against the serving platter. This is not the time or place. You took $85,000 from my education fund, I continued louder now, and used it to pay for Bryn's honeymoon. Aunt Diane gasped. Uncle Rick's eyes went wide. Bryn's face flushed red. Maren, oh my God. Can you not? My mother stood, her voice shaking with barely controlled rage. You are making a scene. We helped your sister. That's what families do. You stole from me. We didn't steal anything. My father's voice was ice. That money was in the family. We reallocated it where it was needed most. I was drowning in student loans, I said slowly, while you paid for overwater bungalows in Champagne. Bryn slammed her wine glass down. You're so jealous. You always have been. Just because you couldn't have a nice honeymoon doesn't mean I shouldn't. I couldn't have a honeymoon, I said. Because I can't afford to get married. I'm $62,000 in debt. Because you told me the fund wasn't available. My mother's voice rose, sharp and cutting. You had every opportunity we gave Bryn. You chose to take out loans. That's not our fault. The table erupted. Voices overlapping, everyone talking at once. Aunt Diane. Wait, they used her college money? Uncle Rick. That's not legal, is it? Cousin Emily. Holy shit. My mother pointed at me, her hand trembling. You are ungrateful. Spoiled. After everything we've done for you. You've done nothing for me, I said. And I pulled the legal consultation summary from my bag and slid it across the table. My father picked it up. Read the first line. His face went white. You wouldn't, he whispered. I stood. Grabbed my coat. I already did. I walked out of that house the same way I walked in. Quietly. No slam doors. No screaming match in the driveway. But this time, I wasn't retreating. I was executing. The Uber back to my hotel, a Holiday Inn Express near the Domain, because I wasn't staying under their roof, took 14 minutes. I didn't look at my phone. Didn't check the 37 texts flooding in from family members demanding explanations, apologies, clarification. I already knew what they'd say. You embarrassed us. This is between you and your parents. Why would you do this on Thanksgiving? Because they chose Thanksgiving 2 years ago when they wrote the check for Bryn's honeymoon. I just chose it as the day they'd start paying it back. Inside my hotel room, I set my bag on the bed, pulled out my laptop, and got to work. The legal consultation I'd had with Margaret Chin, an estate attorney in Park Slope, had been clear. Clinical. Almost too easy. Your grandmothers will explicitly names you as the sole beneficiary of the education fund, Margaret had said, sliding her reading glasses down to look at me. The language is ironclad. For Maren Eloise Castellano's higher education expenses only. Your parents were named as trustees, not owners. Trustees have a fiduciary duty. They violated it. What does that mean? I'd asked. It means they committed theft. And in Texas, misappropriation of estate funds over $30,000 is a felony. Felony. Third degree. 2 to 10 years if prosecuted. She'd leaned forward. I'm not saying it'll go that far. Most of these cases settle. But the law is on your side, Maren. Entirely. Now sitting in that hotel room with the Austin skyline glittering outside my window, I opened the file Margaret had sent me. Demand letter. Draft for review. I read it 3 times. Each sentence was a surgical strike. Breach of fiduciary duty. Misappropriation of funds. Unauthorized withdrawals. Demand for full restitution plus interest within 30 days. At the bottom, in bold. Failure to comply will result in civil litigation. And referral to the Travis County District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. I made 2 edits. Changed the timeline from 30 days to 21. Added a line requesting a formal written apology. Then I hit send. Margaret would file it tomorrow. Certified mail. My parents would have it by Monday. But I wasn't done. I opened a new browser tab. Logged into the family cloud account they'd never removed me from. Found the folder labeled Bryn Wedding. Inside, every receipt. Every invoice. Every confirmation email. Conrad Maldives. $18,430. American Airlines first class upgrade. $12,400. Private yacht excursion. $6,800. Spa package. Multiple visits $11,680. Gucci, Fendi, local jewelry stores in Male. $9,150. I downloaded everything. Organized it by date. Cross-referenced it with Bryn's Instagram posts. Then I created a PDF. Titled it, Evidence of Misappropriation, Castellano Estate Fund. Sent it to Margaret with a note. Additional documentation for your files. Next, I opened my banking app. The one showing my loan balances. Federal loans. $48,200 remaining. Private loans. $13,800 remaining. Total. $62,000. I calculated interest accrued over 2 years. Added it to the original $85,000 they took. $91,340. That was the number I was owed. Not just morally. Legally. I typed it into a new email to Margaret. Please amend the demand letter to include accrued interest on my student loans as consequential damages. I took those loans under false pretenses because they assured me the fund was inaccessible. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. You are destroying this family. Over money. Is that really who you are? I stared at it for a long moment. Then I typed back. You destroyed it the day you chose her vacation over my future. I blocked her number. Then my father's. Then Brins. The silence that followed wasn't painful. It was clean. Surgical. The kind of silence that comes after you've finally stopped explaining yourself to people who were never listening. I opened my laptop one more time. Pulled up the screenshot of Bryn's Instagram post. The one with the overwater bungalow. The one where she thanked her amazing family for believing in her dreams. I saved it to a folder labeled Exhibit A. Then I closed the laptop, turned off the lights, and lay back on the hotel bed. Outside, the city hummed. Traffic on Mopac. A distant siren. The low thrum of planes descending into Bergstrom. For the first time in weeks. I didn't feel angry. I felt certain. They'd spent years teaching me that silence meant compliance. Tonight, they'd learn it meant preparation. And the reckoning they laughed off at Thanksgiving? It was just getting started. The letter arrived on a Monday. I wasn't there to see it. I was back in New York, sitting at my desk in a WeWork on Fulton Street, reconciling data sets for a client presentation. But I knew the exact moment it landed because my phone started vibrating like it was having a seizure. 18 missed calls in 12 minutes. I let them ring. By Tuesday afternoon, Margaret called me. They received the demand letter, she said, her voice calm, professional. And they've responded. Through an attorney. My stomach tightened. Already. They're scared, Maren. That's a good sign. Their attorney, some guy named Preston Williams who probably played golf with my father, sent a countered offer, $40,000. Paid over 5 years. No admission of wrongdoing. I laughed out loud when Margaret read it to me. Tell him no, I said. Full restitution. $91,340. 30 days. Or we file. Margaret paused. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. She filed the civil suit on Friday. Travis County Court. Case number CV. 24-8847. By Sunday, my phone was a war zone. Texts from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. My mother's sister. My father's brother. Second cousins who didn't know my middle name, but suddenly had a lot of opinions about family loyalty. You're tearing this family apart. Your parents are devastated. Bryn is having panic attacks. Is money really worth losing everyone? I didn't respond to any of them. But I did post something on Instagram. My account was private, only 43 followers, mostly college friends. But I knew someone would screenshot it. Someone always does. A photo of my NYU diploma. Simple caption. Earned not given. Paid for twice. Within 2 hours, it had been shared to a Texas A&M parenting group. Then a Dallas mom blog. Then someone sent it to a local news reporter who'd been covering education debt stories. By Wednesday, I got an email from a producer at KXCN Austin. Subject. Interest in your story. I deleted it. I wasn't trying to go viral. I was trying to survive. But the story had already started moving without me. Bryn's Instagram, once a carefully curated gallery of aesthetic perfection, started hemorrhaging followers. Comments on her old Maldives posts turned vicious. Did you steal your sister's college fund for this? Imagine being this entitled. Your parents should be ashamed. She locked her account by Thursday. On Friday, my father's business partner called me. A man I'd met twice, maybe, at company holiday parties. Maren, he said carefully, I don't want to get involved, but your father's reputation is taking a hit. Clients are asking questions. Is there any way to resolve this quietly? He had 21 days to resolve it quietly, I said. He chose a lawyer instead. The man sighed. I'm sorry this happened to you. It was the first apology anyone in their orbit had offered. By December 10th, their attorney contacted Margaret again. New offer. $85,000. Full amount. Paid in 60 days. Plus a written apology. They're folding, Margaret said. But they're trying to save face. The apology will be vague. We regret any misunderstanding. That kind of thing. Not good enough, I said. I want them to state in writing that they misappropriated estate funds designated for my education. And I want the $91,340. With interest. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Maren, if we push harder, this goes to trial. That's months. Maybe a year. And it'll cost you in legal fees. How much have I paid so far? 4,000. I thought about the 15 years I'd be paying off loans if I did nothing. Thought about every double shift. Every ramen dinner. Every time I'd said, I'm fine when I wasn't. File for trial, I said. On December 18th, their attorney called Margaret directly. No letter. No formal offer. Just a voice tight and strained saying, we'll agree to the $91,340. Paid in full by January 15th. Written acknowledgement of misappropriation included. Margaret called me immediately. You won, she said. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. Hollowed out. But steady. Get it in writing, I said. She did. The settlement agreement arrived on December 22nd. 10 pages of legal language that boiled down to one simple truth. They took what wasn't theirs. And now they had to give it back. I signed it in my apartment, alone at 11 p.m. while my roommates watched Love Actually in the living room. When I set the pen down, I didn't cry, didn't smile. I just exhaled. For the first time in months, the weight lifted. Not because I got the money back. Because I finally stopped carrying their choices. The check arrived on January 12th. 3 days early. I was walking back from the bodega on the corner. Coffee, bagel, the usual. When I saw the mail carrier sliding envelopes into the slots by the door. She handed me a thick manila envelope, certified mail, return address from a law firm in Austin. I didn't open it on the street. I waited until I was back in my apartment, door locked, coffee still hot. Inside. A cashier's check for $91,340. And a letter. 1 page. Typed. Signed by both my parents. We acknowledge that funds designated for Maren Eloise Castellano's education were inappropriately withdrawn from the estate account and used for purposes outside the scope of the trust. We regret the harm this caused and accept full responsibility for our actions. No, we're sorry. No, we love you. Just legal language that admitted what they'd spent a decade denying. I read it 3 times. Then I sat down on my floor, check in one hand, letter in the other, and I cried. Not from sadness. Not even from relief. From recognition. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn a love that was never going to come. Trying to prove I was worth the same care, the same investment, the same attention they gave Bryn without her ever asking. And it took losing $85,000 to realize the truth. I was never the problem. That afternoon, I walked to Chase on Flatbush and deposited the check. The teller's eyes widened when she saw the amount. Big day, she said, smiling. Yeah, I said. It is. I paid off all $62,000 in student loans in one transaction. Watched the balances drop to 0 on my phone screen while standing on the sidewalk outside the bank. Federal loans, $0. Private loans, $0. For the first time since I was 18 years old, I didn't owe anyone anything. The remaining $29,340 went into a savings account. Untouchable. A foundation I could finally build on. That night, I called my best friend from college, Jordan. The one who'd listened to me cry at 3 a.m. more times than I could count. It's done, I said. How do you feel? She asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Free, I said. And I meant it. I'm telling you this story not because I want you to feel sorry for me. I'm telling you because maybe you've been there too. Maybe you're the responsible one in your family. The one who fixes things. The one who's expected to carry more because someone decided you were strong enough to handle it. Maybe you've been told you're dramatic when you set a boundary. Selfish when you say no. Ungrateful when you ask for the bare minimum of respect. Maybe you've spent years funding someone else's dream while yours collected dust. If that's you, if any part of this story made your chest tighten because it felt too familiar, I need you to hear this. Your worth is not measured by how much you can give. Your love is not proven by how much you can lose. And walking away from people who treat you like a resource instead of a person is not cruelty. It's survival. I didn't destroy my family. I stopped letting them destroy me. And if you're standing at that same crossroads right now, wondering if you're brave enough to set the boundary, strong enough to hold it, justified enough to protect yourself, you are. You always were. So here's what I need you to do. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if this story hit close to home. Tell me if you've ever been the one who had to choose yourself when no one else would. Your story matters. And I promise you, you're not alone. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next, because next week we're diving into the family who said, "You're not invited to Christmas," and what happened when I showed up anyway. Like this video if you believe that justice isn't revenge. It's just refusing to carry someone else's consequences anymore. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's still waiting for permission to protect themselves, share this video with them. Because the best thing I ever did wasn't getting my money back. It was realizing I never needed their approval to deserve it in the first place. I'm Maren. And I'm done being the strong one at my own expense. You should be too.